while Ronald and you were talking, you also, spoke about transparency, right? And it's a word which a lot of CHROs and a lot of companies use. But in your perspective, right, running CompUp, according to you, what does a transparent organization look like? Not in terms of values, but in empirical value, right? Like data-wise, what does it look like?
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, again, because I have been fortunate to be working with a lot of very senior leaders who have done good stuff around pay transparency, around the culture of the company at large. Transparency for me or for anybody, in a company should be, if I, as an employee, am able to understand why am I getting paid what I'm getting paid, that is being transparent. If I don't understand, it is
Hmm.
not transparent, which means
Hmm.
if I'm able to answer basic questions, right? I'm a top performer in sales, and hence I'm getting 15% increment, right? If I were a mediocre performer, I would have gotten different, which means
Hmm.
my performance is affecting my pay. Because I'm underpaid compared to my peers, my company will take extra efforts to bring me at par with respect to market, which means my company is considering where the market is versus my pay. Because let's say there are two people, Anurag and Ronil, working in Hirsch's team, both doing the same job, both are top performers, and Anurag is already paid higher, Ronil is
Hmm.
paid less. Now, when both are top performers, and if Hirsch decides to give 30% increment to Ronil and Anurag both, that is not right. If you continue doing that, eventually the pay disparity between Ronil and Anurag will keep getting wider and wider,
Yeah.
right? Because Ronil is on a higher base already, he'll keep getting richer compared to Anurag. Whereas
Hmm.
Hmm.
Harsh's effort or the company's effort should be how I can bring Anurag and Ronil both to the same compensation, not by penalizing Ronil that much, but more by increasing the
Incentive.
increment,
Yeah.
incentivizing or increasing. No, so you just have to give give me a higher increment. Now,
Hmm.
if Anurag knows that, now imagine my psychology. Today, if I know I'm working with a company which has this philosophy, in that case, I know that if I'm underpaid, company will take care of it. If I'm a top performer, company will take care of it. I don't have to break my head in saying, you know what, I have to be close to Harsh, because what
Hmm.
Harsh feels about me will have a larger impact on my compensation. And if he thinks I am bad, or not from
Hmm.
his hometown, or if I don't go to office regularly and meet Harsh, that will eventually affect my pay. And pay is not a decision unlike performance rating that you take every quarter. It is taken once every year, which means whatever Harsh's mood is on the day of increment, that will decide how much I'll get paid for the entire year. And if I,
Yeah.
as an employee, start getting a feel that this is biased, I don't, I am unsatisfied with my compensation for the entire
Hmm.
one. Now, transparency is making sure Anurag doesn't feel this way. That is transparency for me.
Yeah. But like
Makes
even
sense.
this benchmarking which you said, right? A lot of companies just do it internally. Like I remember when I was leading a agency, and when I had to drop an offer letter, my HR team would kind of bring to like the current offer versus an existing candidate in the company, saying, "Hey, same
Right?
levels of years of experience, similar kind of role. This is what we are paying them. So this is what we should be paying the person coming in." And
Got
then
it?
I would get into this 2-day battle with them. No, but this person also has this skill set. This person will also be able to give us this, so let's give him more than this, right? But now when you talk to me, I realize that this is very subjective. Like I'm just doing it because I like that candidate and I want to get him, right?
Correct.
But is there a way to kind of also get a third list on the side, which is market standard? Because a lot of companies are far away from market standards. They feel their internal standard is the gold rate.
Correct. Correct. So there's a very methodical way of doing that, which is called market benchmarking, and
Okay.
a lot
Hmm.
of mature companies would do that now. So when I say comp-up customers, 100% of comp-up customers would also get involved in something which is called market benchmarking. What
Hmm.
happens in that exercise is that I will create a list of similar companies where I lose talent to or hire talent from, because those are essentially the
Okay.
companies
Hmm.
where I'm competing for talent, where there is a similar talent, and hence benchmarking with them makes sense, and not benchmarking with Facebook and Meta unnecessarily,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unless
So
they're competition.
Unless they're of course, unless OpenAI, Meta, Netflix is your competition, you should benchmark with
Yeah.
them. But if you're not, you probably are good off benchmarking with the, let's
Correct.
say, Zeptos and Flipkarts of the world, right? Now, once you've decided
Yeah.
your competitor basket, there are third-party agencies who do that. Mercer, Aon, Willis Star, Watson, Deloitte, plenty of companies who would conduct this exercise. So when you approach them, they'll tell you that, hey, software developer 2, as in your company, is actually mapped to software developer 3 in this company, and so on. So basis
Mm,
skill, competency, and multiple, whatever the framework is,
Mm.
basis that, they'll make an apple to apple comparison and tell you that market benchmark P50 median of the market for software developer in this
Yeah.
market is 28 lakh rupees, and P75 is so much, P90 is so much. Now you as a company decide
Mm.
that if you're a product company currently in building phase,
Mm.
maybe you want to lead the market because you want to attract the top of the talent. So maybe
Yeah.
P75 is what you consider as your gold standard, and that becomes a market point.
Mm.
But that is just one data point,
ah,
right?
okay.
So
Makes
P75
sense.
you know is 28 now. Let's say hypothetically you assume 30 is P75, 75th percentile of the market.
Mm,
My existing employees, for whatever reason, are underpaid. They are, let's say, at 21, 22, and so on. But the new talent that you're going to hire, you'll be getting at 28 or 30 itself, because that is what the market is.
Mm.
Which means
mm,
you
Mm.
cannot say that you have been able to get lucky and you have hired a talent at 21. If you pay 21, you get 21. You'll not get
mm,
28. So
Mm.
eventually, the
Mm.
type of talent, the type of skill set that you're hiring for, you're getting at 28. Now it is your moral responsibility to make
mm,
sure, not that you should not get 28, product demands it, all of us, compensation team, HR teams, all the support functions are working so that business can be successful. So the first
Mm.
responsibility of the HR team is to make sure business problems are met, which means you have to make that higher.
Yeah.
But
ah,
Mm.
it is also your moral responsibility to consider those two people who are at 21 and 22. If they are at the same performance level, they are able to deliver the same results eventually. I'm not saying give them 28 just because you have made a new hire. Those two people should know that if they are underpaid with respect to peers, you will pave a way for them to get to 28
reach
or
there.
30 or whatever that market benchmark is. So your pay philosophy
Mm,
Mm.
also talks about P75 or P50, what is it that we are chasing? So the talent is only worrying about code that he or she has to write, because
mm,
P75, if
Mm.
that has moved from 21 to 30 in 1 year, my talent team will make sure that I am accelerated with respect to increment. So tomorrow when I'm sitting with increment along with the 30 lakhs person, he probably gets 15% increment, but I get a 40%
Mm.
increment because I have to become closer to
Mm.
that person. So I think
yeah.
that is the most efficient, most fair way of doing that. And don't get me wrong, not that companies don't want to do that, but
Mm,
Mm.
it is just so much of a task to actually be able to
Mm.
operationalize all of this, make people understand
Mm.
that at times people just ignore it. They're like, hey, yaar, Excel sheet mein karna hai, how much can be done?
mm,
Leader has 15% budget, give
Mm.
everyone 15. However, if engineering as a function has moved by 25%, sales as a function has moved by 8%, that should also reflect in the budget that you're giving to your sales leader and your engineering leader. Engineering leader should get a higher budget.
Mm.
That is how
yeah.
Anurag will go to 28. Otherwise, you're not giving them enough money. And then you're talking about pay philosophy, transparency, and that I value my people. You are not valuing your people if you do not understand how their market has moved and you're not compensating enough for that.
Yeah.
So I think that operationally is a challenge, and hence companies at times are not able to do that.
Yeah. It's almost like
Yeah.
compromising on equality to kind of be fair to everyone. Yeah. So
Exactly.
that's where the
Talent also does not understand. So again, you ask anybody, almost everybody is not happy with what they get, right?
mm,
How happy are you with pay?
Mm.
No, not very happy. Everybody is not happy with what they get. If somebody, irrespective of the increment so let's say Anurag gets a 30% increment, I'm very happy. Oh God, 30% to people get when they change jobs. I got a 30% increment. But if I get to know
Mm.
Ronil has got 35% increment, I'll be so
तो
unhappy. I'll be so unhappy. But now here is where more mature companies, people like Acco, Sprinto come into the picture. There people will not be unhappy because Anurag knows, Ronil knows that Anurag will know Ronil has gotten 35% increment, even though both are top performer, because probably Ronil was underpaid, and hence
Hmm.
company is trying to make him catch up to my salary. It is not because he has done something else,
Hmm.
he likes Harsh more or whatever. And this level of trust, if you're able to instill
Maturity.
in your
Yeah.
employees by being fair, by being more
Yeah.
transparent, I think, and that is what the question was, right? Being
Yeah.
transparent and fair is being able to communicate to the last employee how your pay is decided, so that they have
Hmm.
zero ambiguity around how I am getting paid. And I think if you're able to achieve that, nothing like it. One
Yeah.
step further to that would be what some more forward looking companies have been able to do: just publish the pay ranges, so that people know that
Mm.
Hmm.
SD2s will be anywhere between 21 and 30, so that if somebody is below 20, they would know, hey, why I'm
Yeah.
underpaid. They have the right to ask that question. But you can do that only when you have your pay range and people within pay range. If you
Yeah.
don't have people within pay range, again, now that is the maturity, that you have to publish your pay range when you actually have been able to reduce those disparities to a certain level, right? Otherwise, you'll make so many people
Hmm.
unhappy that you'll do
Yeah.
Yeah.
and good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First you get them into those bands,
Then
then
you're
you
able
publish
to
the
kind of,
bands. No,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
other
so I
way
Yeah.
think
around.
it's a journey. First, you as a leader have to make sure that you're being fair, and then also start communicating that this is how you're fair and things like that, and people
Yeah.
understand that. Because
Hmm.
when people don't understand, they assume the worst.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if you're keeping them in dark, and it's not that you're doing some great justice to them by keeping in dark, they assume the worst and then move on. Versus if you
Mm.
have to
Hmm.
set the narrative, you'll be able to do that with more transparency and not with less transparency.
Yeah. But Anurag, just kind of,
Makes
like,
sense.
this is great for the candidates, right? But just thinking out loud from the company's angle, right? If
Absolutely.
I have to hire like
Yeah.
2 to 3 people for the same role, I'm going through a growth spurt. Um, shouldn't I kind of lean in more to the guy who negotiates better? Because, uh, I mean, don't judge me for asking this, right? But
No, no.
every penny saved is a penny earned, right? So, is it wrong on my part to think that way? That let the negotiation play its role.
You know, you're very, very valid question. And, between men and women, who negotiates better?
Yeah. Men.
I
Yes.
think women.
Apparently
I
men.
think
Yeah,
Yes.
women
yeah.
negotiate much better. No.
I
No.
mean, statistically, they say men
Oh,
negotiate
is it?
better.
Okay,
It's
I didn't.
statistics. It's
When
published.
when it
Yeah.
comes to salaries, men have always negotiated better with respect to
Oh,
salaries and have
Yeah.
wow.
gotten better salaries compared to women. Women tend to stay longer in a company because they're more committal, they're more focused.
Mm.
uh,
Mm,
Men negotiate a lot, and hence they end up getting more. For every rupee that a man makes in the same role, a woman is paid probably only 90 cent, point 90. And this
Oh.
pay disparity
yeah.
has a lot to do with what your question is. The one who
Mm.
negotiates better,
Mm,
of course, gets a higher pay, and that is unfortunate, and ideally should not be happening. Now
Right.
as a company, now think of as a company, if you are letting that, we why do we like going to fixed price shops? Because we know that we are not being cheated, right? That
Ah.
whatever the price is, yeah, that is the
mm,
price. Now similarly, as candidates or as employees, ideally we will eventually feel more satisfied in an environment where there's not much of negotiation, and I am led to believe, so there's a lot of pre-steps before you directly don't negotiate.
mm,
The pre-steps are: make the person realize that this is a very scientific method with which we are
Mm.
arriving
yeah.
at your pay, and hence no negotiation. So tomorrow I'm satisfied
Mm,
that just because Ronil is able to talk a lot better, negotiate a lot better, has a lot of safety net, is not bothered even if he leaves the job and doesn't work, he will be able to negotiate
mm,
better and hence will get a better pay. I, as an employee, will be so much more satisfied, and even Ronil will be more satisfied that, yeah, I don't have to negotiate that much.
Negotiate so much.
It's
Yeah.
fair.
yeah. Nobody likes
Nobody will negotiate
negotiating,
at
I
all.
guess. At least most of us.
Absolutely. But far from true, but you're right, Harsh. Who negotiates better will get better. As a company, it is my responsibility to make sure there is science behind all of this and not gut feel and negotiations.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
where all of this unfairness comes in.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
do you also feel, Anurag, somewhere it's a hidden bias in me that is coming out? Like you mentioned how sometimes I might, like you said something very, like very wise, which is women stay for a longer time. Like now, when I look back at my experience, I've always preferred women because I know that whatever investment I put in terms of training them, I'm going to be able to at least sustain that, right? But that's not the case with men because they're, I mean, again, it's a bias, but I feel that they are more kind of willing to jump for a certain percentage, while women don't want to do that. What other biases have you seen, in your experience? Like, is geography also a bias? Is age and seniority also a bias?
Oh, 100%, 100%. In fact, this is one of the prohibited classes in the US, age, right?
Oh,
That,
Yeah, ageism is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah.
fact, you can be penalized, you can go to jail if they're able to find out systemic bias with respect to age in your pay decisions. You have to publish your pay
superb.
across age groups
Metrics,
also.
yeah.
And if they find that the
Hmm.
same role you are discriminating against
Ah,
older people, because they tend to discriminate against older people,
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
penalized for that. Of course, there's no such law here in India, but very common bias. The
Hmm.
opposite is also true, but not really in that sense. I'll give you an example. Now, who makes the pay decisions? Usually the senior most level, right? Let's say head of
Mm,
engineering. So heads of
Hmm.
functions will make pay decisions. You
mm,
have like a 15% budget. Now below
Yeah.
you, as in your direct reportees, will be again senior folks, and your dotted line reporting or reportees of reportees eventually will be SD1s and SD2s, right?
Hmm.
mm.
Now typically it will so happen that higher cash increments will be given to lower levels, of course, because they have more in cash,
Yeah.
less in ESOPs and LTIs, whatever, right?
Mm,
Now, as a senior leader, you tend to be closer to your reportees, which are senior leaders,
mm,
which
Yeah.
means one bias can be because you are the sole authority of budget and nobody will question you most of the times. As long as you are within your overall budget for increment, you can take out budgets from junior levels and keep giving it to senior levels just because they are
Hmm.
closer to you.
mm,
You
Hmm.
can
mm,
do that, and subconsciously or intentionally also you can choose to do that,
mm.
and you'll rarely be questioned. So that is also one inherent bias, which now companies, now that because they've started shifting to solutions instead of spreadsheet, they're able to catch hold of that hey, wait a minute, I have
Yeah.
allocated x million dollars at this level, y million dollars at this levels. I am seeing a systemic bias in engineering as a function, that there has been overutilization across these levels and underutilization
Hmm.
across these levels. What is happening there? So this is one of
Mm,
the very uncommon systemic bias that is also there. Of course, apart from gender, gender is very
mm,
common.
Yeah.
Which is very common, remote versus non-remote. We've seen
Hmm.
companies catch
mm,
hold of remote versus non-remote bias, where remote people tend to get lower increments
Lower
compared
end.
to non-remote people. Now, as a see, I'm not against that as long as your pay philosophy dictates for it that okay, I want to consciously differentiate between people who are remote and non-remote for whatever reason, for whatever good reason, and your candidates already know of that. That is a privilege that they have let go, right? Because they are
Yeah.
remote. If that is the case, no problem. But if that is not your pay philosophy and your manager is doing that, that is again a problem.
Wrong.
So that is something that could definitely happen. Uh, and also, I'm talking about pay biases, but before that, there could also be a performance management bias, which we'll not talk about given that that is also beyond my scope of work. So, once your performance rating, let's say they are fair, and you have not differentiated between giving more top performers to men versus women, and so on, if
mm,
that has not happened, post that, compensation as an area uh, tends to be heavily biased because nobody comes and argues you for the last dollar, whereas in
Hmm.
performance management there'll be five ratings, 1 2 3 4 5, and
Five.
how much can you differentiate, what can be done. But in compensation,
mm,
you can give 15% also, you can give 20% also, as long
Hmm.
as it's within
mm,
your budget, it is your budget to spend as a manager, you can do
Yeah.
mm,
whatever.
Yeah.
Now, that 5%, imagine, makes such a big difference in life of a person who has a family to
Yeah.
support, right? That will be her or his compensation for one full year. And just because you feel a
mm,
certain way, you have that bias. So I think that is a very sad reality, that companies who do not adopt technology tend to sort of succumb to these biases and can do nothing about it because
Mm.
if you're not measuring it, if you're not monitoring it, I mean, even
Gut is the
whoever
only
is
way
Yeah,
out.
abusing, abusing that power will eventually keep doing that, and that is,
true,
Yeah.
true.
and that also
And honestly, even with good intentions,
correct.
Anurag, I would say it's almost
Yeah,
Impossible.
impossible to get over each
Mm-mm.
bias. Like, I can be 100% sure that if I'm making any decision with my gut, there are inherent
correct,
biases. It's not completely metric
Yeah,
based.
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.